Good morning, boys and girls. Couple of things. Let's start with introductory books. And I wanted to note that viewership has, there's been more and more older people watching, I've noticed. The age distribution of viewership is quite even all the way across. And so I'm happy to see the older folks be interested. And I welcome comments or feedback or anything like that. And anything you can do to support the channel is great. Now, with regard to introductory books, some of you may have heard of M. Scott Peck, The Road Less Traveled. So this was his first book. I haven't read these in a long, long time, but I've prescribed them for folks with very good a good response, especially good for Christians. There's another book of his that I want to recommend for psychologists as well as lay people, and that is People of the Lie, and where he talks about sociopathy and its prevalence and what can be done and so on and so forth. So M. Scott Peck, The Road Less Traveled, or People of the Lie, or I think there's a sequel to this book that's also very good. And then another book that I've prescribed quite a few times over a lifetime is this beautiful book by Pema Chödrön. Pema Chödrön is a Buddhist monk. She's a Westerner who took vows and has been teaching in a monastery, I think in Nova Scotia, for quite a while now. But she writes these really beautiful little books that are very, very helpful for people who are in distress and others, right? So When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chödrön. Let's see what else she's written real quick. This is maybe her first book. Okay, she has Awakening Loving Kindness, Comfortable with Uncertainty, No Time to Lose. This one sounds good. The Places That Scare You, Practicing in Peace in Times of War. Oh yes, and her classic, The Wisdom of No Escape. And some of these are on Audible, as is the Scott Peck, so I highly recommend them to folks for beginners and for people who are just interested in pretty much Abrahamic, in the case of Scott Peck, but this is less Abrahamic, although she is a Westerner. By Abrahamic, of course, I mean the people of the book, the Bible and the Old Testament. So that would include Jews, Muslims, and Christians in all their different varieties. So I'll stop there with the introductory books. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the response to let me know you're out there. And let's get going. Questions?
So few days ago, like 2 or 3 days ago, when I was asleep, I woke up around 2 or 3 a.m. I don't know. I don't remember.
Give me one moment. I'm going to improve this on just 1 second, please. I'm sorry about this.
Yes.
David's iPad disconnected. Ready to connect. Connected
Apologies.
to David's iPad.
Technical difficulties. All right, let's try now.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, how about now? Can
Good.
you
Much
hear
better.
me?
Much better. Thank you. Okay, a
Thanks.
couple of days ago.
Yeah, so a few days ago I was sleeping and I woke up around 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. I don't know the exact time.
Mm-hmm.
But there was lightness all over my body. And I don't know how I felt. There was no fear as such. It was neutral. But even though I'm talking about this, I'm afraid that I'm talking about this because I've heard of a lot of awakening experiences and how it feels. So I don't know whether this has any relation to awakening at all, or it's just my mind boxing this into these categories.
So when you say lightness, you mean in terms of weight, not in terms of light all over your body, right?
Light all over my body. There is no tension. There was no tension or anything.
Okay, but there's not visible light. You weren't like lit up.
Yeah, no. Not
Okay, so
like-
you just
not-
felt
not
light
like
and you
that.
felt peaceful.
Yes.
There was no conflict.
Yeah, but I came into senses after a few seconds, and then that lightness fell apart and everything started feeling heavy.
Okay, well, absent anything else, which you haven't told me anything else that I would be concerned about, it sounds like you woke up and your mind didn't have time to engage in its heavy stuff. It didn't have the weight, all the heaviness of being that we usually carry around with us. You found a moment of peace without any problems or fears or worries or concerns, no obligations, no responsibilities, and no neglect of responsibilities or any of the things that the mind goes on about constantly. And you found a moment of peace. That's certainly on the way to waking up. Imagine if you felt like that all day. Would you like that?
Of course, I would like that, but again, I don't know whether
That's
I
closer
don't
to your
decide
natural state, without all the heaviness of mind weighing you down. That's much closer to your natural state. Our natural state, believe it or not, is peace and love with a capital L, and ungodly intelligence and powers of perception and so on and so forth. We live on about maybe 1%, if that, of our potential. It's really quite striking. So I would just say, I mean, first of all, it didn't sound like it's hypnagogic because you didn't have any weird. We should talk a little bit about hypnagogia. There's this transition between, and we should talk about Kundalini too. There's a transition between waking and sleeping, which if you cultivate it, you can get a hold of your dreams. You can get a hold of your mind, but your mind is not necessarily in secondary process. It's in primary process, the language of dreams, the language of creativity, and you're free to do with it anything you want. You can fly, you can do anything you want as in a dream, but you still retain conscious control. You know, it's right in the twilight state between sleeping and waking. And I'm told some people have it waking up. That's true, yeah, you can have it waking up, but usually it's as you're falling asleep. So this could be cultivated, and it should be cultivated, because this is a step towards lucid dreaming. Okay? So good. So sleep is a very important time biologically. We cleanse all the gunk that's collected in our cerebral spinal fluid and in the interstitium of our brain cells. That's the best theories. I mean, that's the latest that I've heard about what we know so far. We'll learn a lot more about sleep. It is very, very obviously very, very important. Now, if you could wake up and have that peace, then cultivate that if you can. And next time you wake up, before you jump and grab your phone or grab your sutra or whatever else, see if you can stay in that space a while, because it's a relatively clean space without the weight of all these exterior, or what appears to be exterior things weighing on us, right?
But how can you do that? Because if any thought comes into space, then this peace goes away.
Correct. So thought is the enemy of that peace. That's silent awareness.
But
Now-
are they though? I thought not all thoughts are against this. Like there are a lot of
No,
thoughts.
all thoughts are in the opposite direction of being, of knowing, of silent awareness, of unbounded consciousness, of being with God, all these other things. All thoughts are just crude obstacles. It's like running into a post.
But why? Some of them help a lot, especially in...
They help you, you imagine that they help you as incarnated. See, right now you're incarnated as a body, as an animal body, a primate human body. So in that form, which you're dreaming, thoughts could help because they're the currency with which people use. I mean, we're using it right now, right? But that's not reality.
Yes.
Reality is not trees and birds and skies and thoughts and people and roads. Reality is something very, very, very different than that. We have no idea what the substrate of that might be, if there is one, which is probably not. But that's not who you are or what you are really. You forgot what you were in early childhood. And now it's a very difficult process of trying to get it back before you die. But you yourself have no boundaries and have no form and have no shape. You're something completely outside of all of these things, and even the word consciousness or the word God or the word, any word you want to use, infinite light, none of those come close to what the reality is. It's quite peculiar. It's a very interesting situation. Like, why? So the question is, why would, for me, for example, I'm in an old and rapidly decaying body, right? The question would be, why am I in this human form at all? And there's many reasons. I mean, you could be to enjoy the world, or to appreciate what lack of peace is like, or in our world everything's relative. So maybe we're doing this human journey, this human adventure, to see what it's like to be at this level of creation. But this is not who we are.
Okay.
So Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you. I'm sure there's many Hindi sayings also that reflect the same thing. All is Brahma. So you said you didn't know whether what did I ask you last time? Is God infinite? I think, or something like that. And you said you didn't know. So
yeah.
So let's call God reality. It's another word. Oh, they're just words. If it were not infinite, there'd have to be two things, right? What two things are there?
If it is not infinite, then it has two things.
At least two things in the cosmos.
Yeah, because it's not infinite and cosmos is infinite, there will be some demarcation point.
Well, I don't want to. I'm not going to appeal to religious dogma here. That's not of help in 2024 for most people, and that's not what this is about. Just use logic.
So, Mike, can you repeat the question again?
Well, let me just ask you.
Mean?
Let me just ask you. Does infinity exist in this cosmos?
Yes, but I can't comprehend it, or I can't talk about it. I have images of it.
Is there any place where infinity
Ideas
does not go?
Since I can't talk about it, I guess right now.
Yes, because if there were some place that infinity didn't go, it wouldn't be infinite. Right? So just using logic, just using human reason, right? Just basic human reasoning, we end up with what Leibniz called monads, right? There's one. There's one that pervades all. There has to be. Otherwise, you get into some really squirrely thinking. I mean, squirrely, like the last 250 years of big bangs that come from nowhere, right? And mass with no weight, or particles that seem to be there, but they aren't really. They're actually waves. Until you look at them, then they become particles. I mean, you get into real magical thinking unless you use reason. So just while we're on infinities, and I don't want to get too dry for folks, but so we have the infinity. Let's use numbers, all right? We have the infinity of numbers, right?
Yeah.
Now, what about the sets of possible combinations of numbers? So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, but then we have 1 and 2, then we have 2 and 3, 3 and 7, 7 and 15. You know, all those. How many of those are there?
That's 2 power infinity.
That's another infinity, right? So within this infinity, there's another infinity. And then we can take that second series and do it again. So we have an infinity of infinities, right? That's way, way beyond the human mind. But you can experience it. You can experience it. And it feels like
You can have it.
omniscience, omniscience, and omnipotence.
Wait, how? I did not get that part.
That's all right. That's a little advanced. Don't worry about that part. And there's no sense in talking about it. You should discover it on your own. And you will if you just keep going. Which is the only thing to do these days. I mean, look at what's happening in the world and with AI and all, you know, everything. I mean, it's always been true, but it's really true now. Before you die, for God's sake, find out who you are, what you are.
Yeah.
Can I take a little sidetrack for a moment, and then we'll get back to the questions? I wanted to talk a little bit about Kundalini. Somebody asked me about Kundalini, I think. It's a very interesting thing, this Kundalini. After I'd woken up and I'd be meditating for, you know, I'd meditate all the time. It was really chill. My back would snap up. And this is after I've been meditating, and this rush of energy would come and my body would go straight, you know. But my teacher at the time, he said something like people would die to have that, but he just ignored it. Like it was not important. And since then, I've noticed it at times of, while meditating, or times when I'm a little bit tired from something or other, or I don't have to be tired. I can induce it voluntarily. But the thing is, I don't think that it's necessarily associated with any kind of awakening, per se. I know a lot of people kind of fetishize it, like it's really it. But I don't think so. But it does speak to energy channels in the body of which Western medicine knows nothing. It feels kind of like a simultaneous discharge of the entire nervous system, and the muscles contract, and you pop up, and it's not unpleasant. I mean, you could snap your neck. That part can be a little bit not unpleasant, but worrisome, because you don't want to snap your neck. But my teachers just didn't think it was that important. And I'm here to report that although it's pleasant, it's nice that you feel refreshed afterwards. You feel very refreshed afterwards. I don't think it's associated particularly with any kind of real awakening. That's my own opinion on that, with and anecdotal reports. That's all. Oh, I just thought I'd cover that topic. Kundalini. Okay, back to your questions.
Yeah. So I was thinking a bit about it, and so for some reason I know the space doesn't exist in the form of everything senses. So I feel a book exists in the sense that there is a thought on top of my senses, especially like my fingers feeling the pressure to feel something solid. At its base components, there is just feeling on my fingers, but a thought on top of it says that the thing that I am having a hold of is solid and all, but there is no guarantees of any existence.
Do you
Same
trust
goes
your
with time
senses?
as
Do you
well.
trust your senses?
Sorry?
No, go ahead. Let's get to the question, but I want to speak to that. But go ahead. So you're saying you could hold something like this, and because it feels solid, there's a thought on top that says this is a solid object. Correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Keep
That
going.
says it exists.
Keep going.
That says,
What's the question?
on top of it also says it exists. And same goes to time as well. Like there can be thoughts about
Well, let's stick it one thing at a
past and
time. Let's
future.
stick one thing at a time. So we've covered space, solidity, and then you want to go to time.
Yes.
So what's the
So
question you
more
have about this?
precisely-
How could it not be here if you can feel it?
It's simply what I want to say is there is no proof that it is there. It could literally be my senses playing things on me to say that it exists.
It is.
Every sense works in conjunction, and a thought works on top of it, which passes all these senses and says, yeah, something exists, something other than me exists. Or, like, for example, have you seen some of the paintings?
Let me ask you a question. If you were asleep and dreaming, and in your dreams you picked up a pen, right? Would you say that pen exists? In your dream it has
No.
weight and it has solidity, and it even writes. Would you say that it exists?
I would say yes,
Okay.
because it
All right, keep
feels-
keep going with your question. I just wanted to check on that.
Essentially what I'm trying to say is Boltzmann brain is
Boltzmann
Correct.
brain. Okay, now some folks don't know about Boltzmann brain. Why don't you find a little excerpt from Wikipedia or an AI or something? Anything will do. Boltzmann brain. Boltzmann was a great theoretical thinker. Unfortunately, his life was kind of sad, but meanwhile he gave us a lot of things in science. So talk about the Boltzmann brain.
just a second.
God, this channel's getting kind of scientific oriented. Well, I guess it kind of makes sense if I've got young males, and I guess that's my ilk too.
Okay, so Boltzmann brain is a hypothetical self-aware entity that arises due to random fluctuations out of a state of chaos.
Okay, good. So let me spell Boltzmann. 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 So the Boltzmann brain is a hypothetical entity that what?
It's a hypothetical, a self-aware entity that arises due to random fluctuations out of a state of chaos. I think it's not clear here.
So it's akin to if you had an infinite number of monkeys typing infinitely at random, sooner or later one monkey would write, Catcher in the Rye, or write Shakespeare. Theoretically. But that's not what the Boltzmann. The Boltzmann brain is. The Boltzmann brain is basically a brain in a vat. Why don't you look up brain in a vat? Look up brain in a vat real quick. It's a jar with a brain in it, and it's what it is that it's energetically more reasonable to suppose that one brain has invented the entire universe, has dreamt the entire universe, than it is to create an entire universe that has a brain in it. And he's speaking in terms of energy and entropy and what else is he talking about? There was some other. Yeah, it requires less entropy or something like that, less energy.
Yeah, it requires the least amount of energy.
Yeah, it's less energy for the brain to invent
one.
a universe than it is for the universe to create a whole body, a whole planet, trees and vegetables and pasta to support a brain. And so he just pointed out, like a good scientist should, that if we just look statistically or just look energetically in a universe of random fluctuations of everything, it's more likely for the universe to create a brain that imagines a universe than it is to create a universe with a brain in it. So Boltzmann was way ahead of his time. Poor guy.
And that's what I think I am. Like,
You think you're
I
a
am
Boltzmann brain? You think you're a Boltzmann brain?
except... Sorry, I couldn't hear
You
you.
think you're a Boltzmann brain?
Yeah. Sorry, I think the initial part of your sentence got cut off.
Oops. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I was saying was, I feel like Boltzmann brain is correct, except that brain is also part of the illusion.
Okay.
Like, brain also doesn't exist. It's like...
So
Like,
let me just summarize for you and for the audience. Boltzmann believed in, hypothetically, in a brain that imagined the universe. One brain. Right? Because it was energetically more likely and statistically more probable. It's easier to imagine a brain than to imagine an apple pie being baked and cooked and served to so on and so forth, right? Just thinking in terms of probability. But what you're saying is that you're a Boltzmann brain, except the brain itself is imaginary. Okay, why do you think that?
yes.
Why do you think that?
I think that because I am even more fundamental than brain. Because I still couldn't prove where I am inside my brain. I still couldn't prove physically who am I.
Oh, in other words, you just have the same problems of finding out who you are, whether you were a brain in a vat or you were walking around, talking on video right now.
Yes.
Okay, good. So the problem doesn't go away just because you're a brain in a vat.
Or I think, yeah. But I think this leads to some, I forgot the name of that philosophy where it says, I am the only thing real.
That's
Everything
solipsism.
is
Solipsism.
solipsism.
Yeah, and it's very important.
So,
Solipsism understandably has a bad rap, and it should. And people conflate consciousness as fundamental with solipsism, but consciousness as fundamental says nothing of the sort. Okay, so
but
what
how-
happens these days, if you talk to materialists, is they get all high and mighty, and they say, well, that's just solipsistic, which is a denigration. It says that there's only, but they haven't stopped to understand that although there's a universal mind, a universal consciousness, it's infinite. And I mean, in the Avatamsaka, we'll see that chapter called the incalculable, right? And we'll get an idea of the infinity of infinities. But what they say is that no, you're just being silly because that's solipsism. You're saying there's only one mind. And it happens to be the mind of the philosopher or of the mystic. But that's an unfair characterization of idealism, of understanding that there is one universal consciousness, but within that universal consciousness there are apparently individual minds. I don't have to
That's
deny
not
the
a strong
existence of your
argument, I
mind. I don't have to deny the existence of your mind to say it's contained within me.
yeah, but I still don't have any proofs of that. Like, what I'm getting at is,
Proof
how
of
can you
what?
disprove
Proof of
that
what?
after?
Proof of what?
Proof that you are aware. Like, you could just be mimicking things.
Okay.
There is no proof that you
Name
are
something other than existence that is provable.
aware. Nothing, because proofs are still thoughts. Or
So the
it
only
depends what
reality
you
you
want to
have, the
prove.
only certainty you have is that existence exists. That there is existence. I mean experience, I'm sorry. There is experience.
Experience.
Experience is the only thing you know. It's the only thing you'll ever know. You can't know anything else. This was Descartes, René Descartes, Renedescartes, the great French thinker, philosopher. He kind of screwed up because he thought the self was in the pineal gland. Oh well. Da-da. But other than that, I think, therefore I am is very close to understanding that existence is all that we could know. I mean, experience. I keep saying existence when I mean experience. I think I know why, but experience is all we know. Even causality, the precious causality that we hold on to in science. Ask an AI, what did David Hume say about causality? David Hume, Hume, the great Scottish philosopher. Scientific thinker, too. What did David Hume say about causality? He's one of the best minds we've ever had on this planet. Go ahead.
Yeah. The problem of induction. Hume argued that our belief in cause and effect is based on habit or custom, not on logical necessity.
Boom.
We observe that event A is constantly followed by event B. We assume that A causes B. But we cannot prove that this is always the case in the future.
So we cannot prove causality.
He's right here. Yes, because things are way more complex than that. We just approximate things and we are conditioned to believe. And because of conditioning, I feel like I see things what I want to see and ignore rest of the things that was required to make an event A leading to followed by event B.
So out of habit, you ascribe causality. We have no proof of causality.
Yeah,
but let's get a little bit closer to earth now for folks, all right? Because this is beautiful. I mean, David Hume is the man as far as I'm concerned. Many things about David Hume to recommend. And Descartes and Boltzmann, but these are scientists and philosophers. Let's get down to earth and talk about. So you seem to be resisting the idea that you are all there is. In other words, you put a boundary on yourself. But where is that boundary really?
That's the thing I don't know, because I know for sure there is no boundary as such. In fact,
you know for sure.
What is it? So I would say I know it as an idea.
Okay, good. So that's different. Knowing it as an idea, as a possibility, as a hypothesis. Remember, we're not here to convince you to some religious dogma or doctrine.
Yeah.
That's antithetical to this work. The idea here is to set you free. And the freedom in this world means questioning, at the very least, questioning what our conditioning says. Right?
Yeah, I don't want to have another set of beliefs.
Yeah, well, we're not just giving you a set of beliefs, but you're having so then questions. It's like you're having trouble accepting your reality.
What do you mean by accepting my reality?
Feeling calm and peaceful in it, just chilling and going, whoa, this is amazing, this is incredible, this is marvelous. This is the most amazing thing there possibly can be from the human point of view.
But there are instances where I feel unease.
Well, how? Okay, of course, because you've learned to rely on your conditioning. You've learned to rely on your set of beliefs. And you don't have anything else to replace them with yet. Right? Instead, we can put things in there, structures in there. Have you read any of the sutra?
Not a lot.
Well, why don't you read it? Well, see, that will set you free. So let's read a little bit for folks, okay? Let's see if that helps us. Where are you?
I have been in this field for quite some time. Yeah. I think in 239.
All right. Why don't you start at the bottom paragraph?
Okay.
Beyond the sea of
Beyond
fragrant
the sea.
water. Okay, go ahead. 1 second.
Okay. Beyond the sea of fragrant water, Jewel Array is a sea of fragrant water called Treasury of Light, supporting the polar mountain, with a world system called producing immense clouds. Next to that is a sea of fragrant water called variously adorned realm of great power, with a world system called adornments of unobstructed purity. Next is a sea of fragrant water called thickly spread jewel lotus blossoms, with a world system called supreme lamp array. Next is a sea of fragrant water called resting on adornments of all jewels, with a world system called treasury of sunlight webs. Next is a sea of fragrant water called manifold beatification, with a world system called resting place of jewel flowers. Next is a sea of fragrant water called exercise of extremely brilliant intellect, with a world system called array of superlative forms. Next is a sea of fragrant water called mountain peak holding beautiful precious stones, with a world system called universally pure treasury of space. Next is a sea of fragrant water called great light illumining everywhere, with a world system called sapphire torch light. Next is a sea of fragrant water called filled with delightful jewels illuminating everywhere, with a world system called ubiquitous roar.
Read the next sentence.
There are as many such seas as atoms in unspeakably many Buddha fields. The one closest to this,
Okay, so adornments of unobstructed purity, universally pure treasury of space, manifold beautification, exercise of extreme brilliant intellect. So the purpose of this sutra is to make it possible for your mind to begin to grok reality. Now, we as humans, we live in these very constrained little ideas of the world and the universe. I mean, when I was growing up, they taught us about, the solar system and the Milky Way, and then they said something about the universe, right? But it never sunk in. I never understood the the vastness of the space they were talking about. Or alternatively, going the other way towards biology and physics, the minuteness of these tiny little organisms, or in physics the Planck length, 10 to the minus 44 or whatever, or the Planck interval. So my brain was not able. So you got to make your brain capable. Now, this way of doing it is only one way, but this is more for smart people that are inclined towards. I was going to say scientifically minded people, which is ironic because here I am, I'm using a 2nd century sutra written by illuminates who had direct knowledge, right? They have direct perception. That's how they know these things. Okay, and to me that seems more scientific in a way, certainly psychologically, than does, and it may be, than other things, let's say. So let's not go on that road anymore, because I was about to say that for scientists, this is the way to go. The Avatamsaka Sutra, the Flower Ornament Sutra. But see, your brain is not capable yet. That's the problem.
What can I do? Just read
Sutra right now. Read Sutra, and as you go through your day, contemplate what would it mean. That many seas beyond this sea, there's an uncountable number of seas, or Buddha verses or universes or whatever. They're beyond an infinity. There's another infinity, and beyond that infinity, there's another infinity, and there is as many infinities like that as there are grains of sand in the Ganges River. Right? Now just think about what that might mean in terms of the scale, and your head either opens up or it explodes. Right? It's like, remember the story of the two frogs in the well? There's a frog who lives at the bottom of the well. And he's very proud of where he lives because he has a whole big lake to himself. And he's very happy. And he's very proud. One day he gets visited by another frog who hops into the well with him, but this other frog's from outside. And he's being a good guest. A good host. He welcomes him, and they're sitting there just kind of making small talk. And he said, the guest, being a good guest, says, "Hey, this is a very nice lake you got here. There's a very nice home you got here." He says, yeah. The first frog says, yeah, it is. This is the biggest lake in the world. I own the biggest lake of any frog in the world. And this is the biggest lake. And the guest says, oh, well, that's it certainly is a very nice lake, right? I mean, a very nice pond. But I'm not sure it's the biggest one in the world. And the other guy says, get out of here. What are you talking about? I know, because I've lived here and I've seen others, and this is the biggest in the world. And the other guest says, well, it's very nice, and, congratulations on it being yours and all that, but it's really not the biggest one in the world. And the host frog says, get out of here. Prove it. And the guest frog says, well, to do that, we'd have to leave the well. And he says, I don't care. Let's go. I know that I'm right, and prove me wrong. I dare you. So the two of them get out of the well, and they start hopping along in a western direction, let's say. Eventually, they get to these sand dunes. These two frogs hopping, bloop, 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 bloop. And together, they hop up to the top of the sand dunes. And the moment they get up there, the host frog, the one from the well, sees the ocean for the first time. And his head explodes. Right? That's what human brains are like right now. So this is a way to gradually get you acclimated to the realm of reality, so your head doesn't explode. And by the way, I've been knocked down and knocked unconscious by seeing things that I wasn't ready for. Unconscious for days. Do you remember there's a Sufi warning that says, if you come in contact with power before you're ready, it's like sticking your fingers into an electric socket. And I'll tell you that it is. It's like sticking your fingers into an electric socket. Worse. Well, I don't know about worse. It didn't kill me. But so you can believe me or not, but I'm here to try and help. And I mean, if you're not going to trust a dying old man, then you got to figure out who you're going to trust.
So what do you mean? Like, if I'm not prepared, then it will come as a shock?
No. Your ego and your mind will protect you. They'll protect you because you won't be able to grok it. You won't be able to understand. I mean, just to look at the vastness of space, to really contemplate the vastness of space, to do that actually, what could send you into an existential crisis? I mean, it's like, oh my God, I had no idea. But then you realize it's not, it's like space in a dream. Our minds construct it.
Yeah.
So your mind has developed this worldview, and you walk around with this worldview, and that, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, and well, we could leave the whole thing alone, except that we suffer, right? And we're curious, where do we come from? How did we get here? Where are we going? Those are deeply, in a different way of using the word science. Forgive me. Those are questions for women and men. All right, let's keep going. Certainly you want to know before you die, let me tell you.
Yeah. So I was actually reading the Instant Zen again.
Oh, good. Very good. You have questions from there?
I was contemplating on things that I had problems in the past.
Good.
So,
oh man, I hope I've got it here. Keep going.
so there was this koan about city and mountain, I believe.
Yes.
It essentially,
Keep going.
it essentially says, in olden times, a certain old adept asked the seeker, "Where have you just come from?"
Correct.
The seeker replied, "The city." The adept, "Where are you now?" Said, "Where are you now?" The seeker said, "The mountains." The adept said, "I have a question to ask you. If you can answer, you may stay. If not, then leave. Now then, when you left the city was lacking you.
When you left
came
the
to
city
mountains-
was lacking you. Correct?
When you came to the mountains had you extra. If you are absent in the city, the reality of mind is not universally omnipresent. If you are an extra in the mountains, then there is something outside of mind." The seeker had nothing to say. So, at
Okay.
that
What
time I
page?
did not
What page?
understand
Just so I could.
this.
What page? It'll make it easier for me.
Yeah, it's at page 40.
Okay.
40 of
All right.
Ancient
Good.
Zen.
So what's the question?
So the question was, when I first read through this, tried to understand it, I could not get it. But after today's discussion, right, about think that being no concrete things other than our own senses, what
Our senses aren't concrete, but go
no,
ahead. Our own consciousness,
what I
our own experience of senses. Okay, keep going.
So what I arrive at from this koan is, what adept is asking is, does there exist a mountain or city, but in reality it's like just senses? You technically did not leave, because the city and mountain are just senses. Like, how can I say? There is no
They're just
3D
experience.
view or something.
Very good. Very good. You worked your way through a koan. Good. So listen. Let me see if I can help. All right. In olden times, a certain old adept asked a seeker, "Where have you just come from?" The seeker replied, "The city." The adept said, "Where are you now?" The seeker said, "The mountains." The adept said, "I have a question to ask you. If you can answer, you may stay. If not, then leave. Now then, when you left the city was lacking you. When you came to the mountain had you extra. If you are absent in the city, the reality of mind is not universally omnipresent. If you are an extra in the mountains, then there is something outside of mind." Good. Beautiful. So if you imagine that your consciousness, or even your body for that matter, is something that leaves the city and then moves over to the mountain, if you believe that, then the city's missing you when you leave, right? And the mountain has you extra because you have this belief that you're a body and a mind and a little meat envelope, right? A little meat sack. So you've understood that Zen koan. Excellent. Very good for you.
Yeah, essentially it's saying there are no 3D things.
You know the famous, and my eyebrows are only slightly, falling out, so that's good. But let me just give it for the audience. Let me give another example. Two Zen students were arguing. They were, they're Zen. They're trying to understand, and so they see this flagpole with a flag, and one of them says, "The flag's moving," and the other one says, "No, the wind's moving." And they go back and forth. One says the flag's moving, the other one says the wind's moving. And so I think they go to a teacher, or maybe a teacher walks by, and they say, "Master, is the wind moving or is the flag, which is moving, right?" And the master says, "Your mind is moving." That took me a while, by the way, that particular koan. It's your mind that's moving, of course.
It's thoughts.
Well, in this case, it's perceptions. It's perceptions. And some thought. But again, we get into the causality thing too, right? But that's maybe why I like David Hume so much. So the point is that if you don't think your view of the world is inside your... Let's just make it simple for folks. The most rudimentary thing for folks. First step. If you don't think the world that you see outside is also inside your skull, then where do you think it is? Right? So that's the first step. But go ahead. Let's keep going. This is good. That's very good to go back and because we've gone through some very good intro texts, and this is one of them. And this is also on Audible, is it not?
Yeah.
Okay, so I recommend this to folks on Audible too. And it's nicely read, which is really nice. So to find, and I wish someone would let Audible know that they need to do more Thomas Clary. We've sent a few emails and stuff, but it's just a few voices, and truth is never the most popular thing in town. And so his books are much less read. Say, for example, his Tao Te Ching is much less read. Tao Te Ching. Oh boy. This book is much less purchased and read on Amazon than other texts. Wouldn't it be wonderful if this was also on Audible? Because people like the cheap imitations. They don't like the real thing, unfortunately. All right, let's keep going. Good.
So at the core of it, I don't know whether it's the core of it or not, but at least I feel like I don't want to be nothing.
Yeah.
Like I remember.
Yeah, you don't. Your ego doesn't want that at all. Because then the gig's up.
But why? Because it's...
I tell you what. Let's make a deal. If you don't want to be nothing, how would you feel about being everything? Ha! It's the same thing. God is beyond being and non-being. Beyond those two things. Beyond yin and yang. Truth is beyond being and non-being. So you can call it nothing or you can call it everything. How would you feel? Does that feel any better for your little ego? Sorry. We should stroke it.
No, I don't know. It's incomprehensible.
Come on. Don't be afraid, little ego. There you go. You don't have to be nothing. You can be everything. Is that better?
No, it just...
Oh, come on. This beautiful, marvelous universe. You don't want to be it? So you want to be something in the middle? You want to be a meat puppet? Stuck in the middle with fears and doubts and anxieties and...
And it's like, if I'm
worries,
nothing,
all
then
that
how
stuff.
can I have any control at all?
Huh?
Like, it's like, if I'm nothing, then how, like, everything's replaceable. Like, there will be no job security because I am where I am because I did few things. And like, if everyone is as equal as me, then they can also replace me, or like,
Okay, well, how about being everything?
I never saw it that way, because right now I was just comparing myself to other individuals, but
Don't ever do that. That's a horrible thing to do. It's a bad way to live your life. Instead, get a little closer to reality. Realize that they're manifestations of you. And you feel compassionate when they're hurting, and you feel joy when they're happy. Right? And nothing makes you happier than the happiness of others and watching them learn and grow. You know, it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful life if you orient yourself properly to it. But right now you're on that side where you're growing. I'm dying, right? But see, it all goes round and round. It's fine. So this thing about nothing, where did that come from anyway? Who said anything about nothing? That sounds like Martin. That sounds like Martin Buber or something. Was he the singer?
yeah, no.
Being and nothingness. No, that's also Heidegger.
Yeah, like, I still can't prove whether I am physically there or not, in the sense that I can't prove what I was before.
Who
I
are you
was
going to
conceived.
prove it to?
Me, and that again recursively.
But who is you
to that
again?
same
It's not like you prove this and you go to class and they say, okay, A+, you proved you existed. Right? You couldn't do that anyway, but you know. So you have to prove it to you, but you don't know who you are.
So to that question, I would answer, I am awareness, and the one who is aware of all these things. But at the same
Okay, let's
time,
call it
I'm talking
awareness.
about
Let's call
so
it
I feel like
awareness. Let's call it awareness. What is the boundary to awareness? In principle, name a boundary to awareness.
I mean, the senses, the limits of my senses. Like, I can't hear
No,
something
because
1,000
you
kilometers
can be
from me.
aware of something that you can't sense. Can you be aware of the far side of the moon right now?
Because
Now we're just playing around, but can you be aware of the far side of the moon?
not directly. I would say not directly, but there would be some
Can you
indirect
feel anything
consequences.
directly? Can you feel matter directly? Can you hear directly? You can't do anything directly.
But what does it mean to feel something directly at all? That would mean...
I'm telling you, it's not how it works, dude. And okay, so I've got the background in neurobiology, but so out here there's all kinds of things going on, right? But how would you know it? In your model, it's got to be inside here, right?
Yeah. That's what I think, yeah.
You think it's inside here?
But yet I think, but I can't still prove it. Or at least I haven't proven it conclusively.
No, you can only know it.
Without a doubt.
But the thing is, for example, I can't prove that I love you. I can't prove it. You can't prove that love even exists. There's many things in this world we can't prove.
It can only be pointed at or inferred. But even inference won't be accurate.
Correct. Leave inference to the turkeys. All year until the day before Thanksgiving. Okay, sir, anything else before we stop?
No.
I'm really happy that you're going back to text and you're asking yourself, wait a minute, I got to get this. It takes effort. It takes patience. It takes discipline. It takes contemplation. And you need the insight that you get sometimes from books, right? And I really recommend the sutra for you in particular. And some generosity to, to yourself and to others. Spirituality. I mean, you know what I mean. I don't mean handing money out to bankers and lawyers. I mean something else, right?
Yeah.
All right, sir? Hasta luego.
Okay.
Cuídate. All right, take care of yourself. Bye.